Okay, this is going to be a fun little lesson. And you're saying, Tris, lesson, Bordeaux, come on, what do I need to know? I mean, right bank, left bank, it's Bordeaux. Well, yes, it is Bordeaux, but on my last trip to Bordeaux, which was just 2 months ago, everybody was kind of talking about this thing called Terrace 4. That's Terrace 4. It's a little bit like Hunger Games, district this, district that. This is Terrace 4, Terrace 5, Terrace 6, Terrace 1, So you have in the Margaux 6 terraces, right? And they all consist of different terroirs in those terraces. Yet Terrace 4 is the magic. That's where the magic comes from. That is where Montrose and Cos and Lafitte and Latour, all those great chateaus, Las Cos even, on where Las Cos is. Not necessarily where Clos de Marquis is, but the Las Cos vineyard next to Latour is, of course, Terrace 4. But then it kind of stops as it moves its way south, and then it comes back in Margaux. And it comes back in the Cantenac area of Margaux. And essentially, it's in Cantenac, and it kind of moves over into Rose-en-Seigle and Chateau Margaux. And if you take note, all these wines that I'm mentioning are classified growths. Now, in 1855, they probably didn't know this because they didn't do the geological studies that, where are Terrace 1, Terrace 2, Terrace 3, Terrace 4? I don't know, we just know that these wines taste the best and they cost the most. And that's how they came up with the 1855 classification. I mean, relatively speaking, of course. So, on my last trip, I visited Chateau Brane-Cantenac and had lunch with Henri Lurton, and we talked a little bit about terroir. And the fact is, all of Brane-Cantenac is on this Terrace 4 terroir. And so I was really amazed because the next day, when I went to Chateau Montrose, that's kind of all they were talking about was Terrace 4. And I remember I was with a negociant, and he's like, Montrose only for the Grand Vin, it has to be all on Terrace 4 terroir. So what makes Terrace 4 so great? It's the ability to, in wet years, have great drainage, and in dry years, there's clay very deep. And as the older vines go deep and they hit this clay, they're able to find the moisture that other, let's say, all gravel terroirs can't do. Or if you have a lot of clay in the soil and it's a very wet year, obviously too much clay. Like they say, it's got wet feet. But Terrace 4 is like the best of all worlds, It could fight off rain, it could fight off drought, it kind of can do everything, And Brane-Cantenac has Terrace 4 terroir. Okay, I'm talking a lot about this great terroir, but let's talk about the wine. Now, Brane-Cantenac, if you're paying attention, is really killing it, making some of the best wines in Bordeaux. This chateau, as in the last decade, has just absolutely turned it around. And I think a lot to Henri Lurton and the team, and the dedication, and their never-ending search for creating something magnificent. And so when I was tasting wines in 2000 for the 2019 vintage. I tasted Brane-Cantenac. And the one thing about what Margaux brings that other appellations don't, not that I don't like other appellations, because I do, but I love the violets and the blue fruits and the really expansion of the mid palate and just the really fine tannins that Margaux gives to, or the appellation gives to the wine. And Brane-Cantenac, to me, has all those beautiful Margaux-like flavors and that just that sweet core of beautiful, beautiful fruit. 2019, a vintage that I think is drinking still really well. It's a vintage that really hasn't shut down. I know I mentioned it before that 19 is probably one of the easiest drinking wines out of the gate for Bordeaux. And I think it's just the style of how Bordeaux is making the wine right now. But anyways, this wine is a blend of, I think it was like, it's 52% Cabernet Sauvignon. I have notes, I can cheat a little bit. 45 Merlot, 1% Carmenere. So 54, 45, 1. Does that make 100? Yeah. So, and it's the Cabernet in Terrace 4 that just kills it. You know, it gets ripe. And Cabernet is hard to get ripe. And people might not realize that. Merlot is easy to get ripe. It ripens early, it's easy. But Cabernet is a little bit more difficult. So when you get those great Cabernet vintages, like 2019, the wine's spectacular. And for $30, it's really hard to find. I mean, I know there's a lot of other Margaux, but they don't have the Terrace 4 terroir. And I'm not saying that those wines are bad, because they're not, because I love Syrah and Labradors and all these wines that are around that $30 price point. But for $30, man, and what's happening in Brane-Cantenac, I mean, literally, the scores are off the charts. They're getting some of the highest scores in the appellation. And you're talking about some killer wines in appellations such as Palmer and Rosensegla, Malasco, etc. So I say go for it. Because again, when I had this wine like about a month ago, it's off the charts. It's so good. It's ready to drink now, but you can age it if you want. It's a mini Brane-Cantenac. It's half the price, and I don't know what to say. Terrace 4.